Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. Very early Saturday this morning. We're going to talk about DevNet. And it's so early. My son is right here next to me. He wanted to watch me do a live stream. Just woke up. Maybe he'll learn a thing or two about Python. He asked me if I wanted to play Minecraft early this morning, and I just started playing Minecraft yesterday, but I had massive allergies, right? I had allergies. I had to take Benadryl, and then I knocked out about 10 o'clock. So now this morning I'm okay. I still have it a little, but got a cup of coffee. What are you having? My son has nothing. He just woke up. I try to tell him to go back to sleep. But thank you for joining me here on a Saturday morning on this live stream. The show version live stream where I'm going live every day for 7 days at 7 a.m. Pacific time. This is day number 3, I believe. So we're going to step into the DevNet a little bit by looking at NETCONF. So I'm going to start a little bit easy. I'm going to analyze a script from the DevNet labs in order to understand how it works and how we use NETCONF against iOS-XE devices. So let me know where you guys are coming from. Here's my son in the background he's still on his PJs. He didn't even get ready for the live stream. So Jim, your daughter wants to get into Minecraft too. It's actually pretty cool to build things in a virtual place. So my son has a Switch. I just got a Switch yesterday. So my daughter's using that Switch, and I was using the iPad, and we were all together in the same server just building a bunch of things. So good morning to you, Anders. Saturday Wi-Fi fever. No Wi-Fi right now. We're actually going to talk about DevNet and Python and looking at iOS-XE to see what we can grab from iOS and try to get details or the information that we want out of an iOS-XE router. Good morning, Eric. Thank you for joining me here today. So there are a lot of links and resources that you guys could use. I would highly recommend you go to developer.cisco.com in order to learn a lot more from DevNet. And we're going to kind of dive into that. I'll show a couple of those resources. Let me know where you guys are coming from today and what kind of coffee you guys are drinking. Good morning, Lariana. And she said hi, Gabe. Someone says hi to you. Because you're in the background. Oh, you got out of bed for Python, Jim. Wow, that's impressive. I didn't know if I was gonna wake up early enough after taking Benadryl because I thought I would knock out even through the morning, but I actually woke up to the alarm and I didn't know what was going on. But here we are, taking a couple sips because we're gonna need it as we go into Python. And Jossie, good morning. Great to see you here again in the live stream. I really appreciate it. So what I do want to show you guys is some of the resources that's available before we dive into NETCONF. This here that I'm showing on my screen is the iOS-XE lab that is always on. So you do need a login in order to view this. Well, just to see this page. But once you have the details, that's all you really need. Because if you look at this, it says, try it now, no reservation required. In some of the labs that Cisco DevNet has, you need to reserve those labs in order to use them. They do give you a lot of time, but sometimes it takes some time to set those up, and then they send you an email when it's all done. But this one specifically, this iOS-XE router is always on, meaning you just need these credentials here in order to practice some of your scripting. And so that's what we're going to do with the lab that I'm going to go through, is to log into this device and actually see how it works. So again, there's many more labs that you can go through, and then you can start building out your own labs. There's a lot more links, and we'll kind of dive into that. So I see Eric's having Folgers. My dad drank a lot of Folgers, so I still remember what that smells like. I'm having actually just Keurig coffee. I don't remember which one it is. I just pick one from Amazon, and it comes and it tastes great to me, so that's what I'm drinking. Anders, you're having Javalia Espresso Coffee, whole beans. Very nice. I thought about grinding some beans this morning, but it was just way too early on a Saturday that I would have woken everyone up. But apparently it doesn't matter because my son's awake and he's naturally on caffeine. He's wide awake and he wants to play Minecraft once I'm done with this live lab. All right. So again, if you want to actually do this lab, you'll watch me go through it. But if you go to developer.cisco.com and actually do a search for NETCONF, so I have this filtered out by NETCONF, and the exact lab that I'm going to go through and kind of analyze and see what's happening in this script is this lab right here, exploring iOS-XE Yang data models with NETCONF. So all you got to do is click on this. It'll say try lab or continue lab. I've already done it before. And then it'll walk you through on exactly what to do. So that's what we're going to do here and talk about NETCONF. All right. So NETCONF, if you guys don't know what that is, NETCONF is a protocol, stands for network configuration. And with NETCONF, it's a protocol used for network management and specifically for monitoring and configuration purposes. Now you might be thinking, well, I already do some of that with SNMP. I've got some other tools that does some configuration that you've already purchased, but I think NETCONF is really an interesting way to get data from our network devices. And it also uses RPC messages and operations to, between like a server and client model, where you're going to use like your computer or your script and then access that router to get information, and NETCONF will use RPC messages, which we'll kind of dive into that a little bit. I won't go into the details of what RPC messages are, but NETCONF operations uses RPC messages, and we'll see things like get config to get something out of the configuration on that device. And so everything then is transported over a secure connection like SSH, and then we can either grab configuration data or operation state data. So those are the two types of data that we can get, and it is encoded in XML. And so that's why we need to use Python, because have you guys read XML before? Have you seen it? It's not that easy to read just by looking at it. And so we're going to use Python to parse that data and get all the information that we want, the exact information. So I'm just curious for anyone on the live stream, and thank you for joining, how many of you guys actually use NETCONF and Python to query some of your network devices? So my son's going to go upstairs. He's already bored of listening to me talk about NETCONF. All right. There's a delay on the chat, so I'm going to keep going, and I will pause if you guys have some sort of question. I'll try to answer it, or if you guys want to talk about how you guys are using NETCONF. All right, so to begin everything, right, we're going to use a virtual environment in Python. Francois says he uses Python, but not NETCONF. And that's okay. I know Francois uses Python to query some of his wireless controllers, for example. And what's cool with the Cisco Catalyst 9800 controller is that NETCONF is supported there. You can turn it on and then query it. We'll see if I can do that sometime during this live stream or on a different live stream, but we'll try to dive into it. So before we do anything, I'm actually going to work on this in a virtual environment, and that's how this lab is going to be run. So if I share my screen here, all right, so you guys should be able to see my CLI output here, my iTerm. And I'm going to run this lab in an isolated Python environment using VENV, or virtual environment. Now, I am aware of VENV and virtual EENV. They're both used to create these virtual environments, but the former, the first one, it's only in Python 3.3 and later, and then virtual environment virtual ENV is available in the Python 2.7 and older. And so VENV will contain everything we need in this virtual environment, and I'm sure you guys are aware of how virtualization works. But we can specify or install certain packages just in this isolated environment for whatever application we're trying to create. And so with those packages, you can use pip to install them. And the reason why you want to use a virtual environment is so you don't install, you don't have to install these packages in your global environment. So like on my Python installation on my Mac, you could run into different issues such as having version issues. Maybe you're trying to build an application or script that uses a very specific version of a library, for example. So that's why you create these virtual environments. And so we will go into a directory, which I have already created, called NETCONF. And the first thing that we actually run, and I'm going to use Python 3, is we'll use the module VENV, and I'm just going to call it demo. All right, and I think what I want to do here is actually, before I run that, I feel my allergies coming up. So I already have a Python script in this directory, which contains nothing. This is my Python script right here. And so you can see there's nothing else in this directory except for that Python script. So we will run a virtual environment and see what happens. I actually should have put that Python script in this new directory. We'll see what happens. So we're now creating the virtual environment. And just so you guys know, I'm not a complete expert in this. I am actually trying to learn Python and DevNet and all that. And so this is one way I can try to learn it, by teaching you guys what I've learned with scripting. So if I do say something incorrect, let me know in the comments and we will highlight that. All right, so it's done. It's created a virtual environment. So now you can see there's a directory in there called demo. And if we go in there, it's got a configuration file, pyvenv.config, right? So if we look at that, just to look at what this virtual environment looks like, there's the home directory, include site packages as false, and this is the version. And then if we actually go into bin, I think, so you can see all these different things. So we got Python 2 and Python 3 in there, and I am going to activate this virtual environment. I'm not in it right now. I'm just looking at these directories. So I think another interesting thing I wanted to show you guys here, actually no, not there. I think it's in lib. So I have no packages right now in here. So site packages, here you go. If you go to in my demo directory, lib, and then Python 3.7, we'll look at site packages. These are the packages that are already installed, right? So we've got easy install, pip, setup tools, and all that. So let's go back up to the main directory. So what I want to do is activate this virtual environment. And the way you do that is you type in source, and then I am in demo, bin, and then activate, run that, I think it's a shell script. Oh, wait, where am I? I'm already in there. So actually just go back one and then go run source demo bin activate. I could have just dropped the demo portion in that path. All right, there we go. So now I'm in my demo virtual environment. And so what source does is it sets the virtual environment's variables there. And then if we look at the contents of the directory that I just showed you, it showed the configuration file, and we saw that there are no site packages packages installed in this virtual environment. And so what we're going to do is install those packages. All right, so now this is going to be interesting. What I want to do is show you the IOS-XE setup. I did run nmap just to show you this host because it doesn't respond to any pings, and it doesn't, you can't like directly SSH into it, but you can see that there's 2 ports available. So I just ran this nmap script before we went live, and it is configured to use NETCONF over port 10,000. And so that's exploring like what this looks like for our IOS-XE lab. And the easiest way to look at this, so let's say we want to just look at NETCONF. And you saw way earlier, I had the details of the iOS box right here. This is what we're going to use to connect to it using NETCONF. It says you could use RESTConf too, so I'll look at that at a different live stream, but we'll use NETCONF. All right, so we're going to SSH because NETCONF, it's mandatory that it uses SSH as a secure transport. And then we're going to use the user account developer to log into ios-xe-management-cisco.com. We're going to utilize port 10,000, and we're going to call a subsystem of NETCONF. Should prompt us for a password, which I have memorized by now. Super secure password. Should get some output. So there you go. Excuse me. This is XML. We're using NETCONF. And if I scroll up, it's XML, encoded in XML. And it's giving us NETCONF right there. And it's giving us a list of the capabilities on this IOS-XE box, right? So it's not that easy to read, right? Because you can't just go, all right, what do I have here? It's got Yang on there, Yang data models that you could utilize in your scripts. We're looking at different objects. There's some OpenConfig stuff on here, network instances. What else can we get out of here? Because I do want to show you what we're going to look at here. There's some namespace here that's interesting. But what I want to do is query or get a hold of all the interfaces on this box, and then just query what the description is of that interface, or if it's enabled or not. That's a simple way to do the script. So this is not how you want to use NETCONF. You don't want to log in directly to the box like this and just have it spew out all its capabilities. And just to give you an idea of NETCONF, it does have a unique session ID here. And so what I would do is respond with the same session, or I think with the same session ID, and say goodbye or something, or exit using an RPC message. But I'm not going to do that. All right, so for the script that we're going to use, it's pretty empty right now. We want to use 3 different packages. All right, we're going to use ncclient, which I believe stands for NETCONF client. It's a Python library for NETCONF clients, and it will map all the XML encoded data to Python constructs, because we want to be able to use this information that's on the output here. And what's really nice about it is it actually includes integration to different systems like Juniper and Cisco. So if you have a special device handler, that would actually there's different flags that you could use in order to query Cisco or Juniper routers and switches. All right, and then from the NETCONF client, we're going to use the manager module, and that's going to make the connection to the router, this IOS-XE router, and then use RPC operations, which NETCONF uses. The second package I'm going to install is xmltodict. It's a Python module for working with XML, and it's going to allow us to parse it easier because it's going to convert that XML output into a dictionary, Python dictionary. And then we'll use a built-in module called xmltodict, and that'll help us use parse XML and use Python through the use of minidom to actually get those different keys and values out of it. So what we could do now is install these three packages, but I do want to show you that you can get the documentation online for these different libraries. And so here's the manager module of NETCONF client. And so we're going to use the manager to SSH into IOS-XE and use the RPC operations over NETCONF. And then here's XML dictionary if you wanted to read into how this module works, because we're going to, some of this will look familiar as I try to type in the code. And then we have minidom as an example, as this is a way to query XML and be able to get that data output of what you need. All right, so why don't we install that first? All right, so let's see. I want to go into my virtual environment here, demo. So what we'll do is to install NETCONF client, we will do pip3 install NETCONF client. That is what it's called. Then that should run through the installation. You could see all that output, and I'll hide my little face there. It says I'm using pip version 19.2.3. There's a higher version available. We could upgrade if we want to. Now we're going to install XML dictionary. And excuse me while I cough. All right, successfully installed. So that's what we want to see. Successfully installed that version, and then it successfully installed all these two. These were dependencies of NETCONF client. And so if I show you, then if we go back to this, I just switched tabs. Actually, where am I? Right here. If we go into demo and then look at what's included here, I'm in the wrong directory. Where am I? I wanted to show you where it installed these packages. I can't even remember where that was. Well, that's interesting. I thought I knew where it was. Okay, so, well, it's there. It's installed. I know it is. Oh, here you go. Python 3.7. And then there's site packages, right? So I'm showing you the different directories. And before, we didn't have many packages there. Now you could see that we've got a whole lot of different packages here, especially here's the xmltodict that we installed. Here's NETCONF client. And then it installed all these other packages that it needed in order to run that. So that's, I just wanted to show you what that looked like when you install packages in this virtual environment where it doesn't contain anything yet, but then it shows you that it is installed in just this virtual environment. So in the end, when you're done with this virtual environment, you just type in deactivate, and then you could just delete that directory whenever you want, and it doesn't affect anything globally in your system. So now I'm going to go back to the script here, and we're going to start off by importing those packages that we just installed. And so in this script, my goal here is to go through the NetConf lab that's available on DevNet and kind of go through what everything means, and then show you the output and like what's going on behind the scenes, right? So this is the purpose of this, is to grab what we want are the interfaces off of the router that I queried here, and show either their description or the status, if it's enabled or not. And so we'll go back to the script here. And first we want to define the modules that we want to import. And so from the NetConf client, I'm going to import the manager module. That's going to be used to make our connection to the router. And then we're going to import XML to dictionary, because we're going to need that in order to convert the XML output into a Python dictionary. And then we're going to import a module that's already with Python. This is to for us to parse that XML output and get exactly what we want. So then from here, we want to create our connection to the Cisco router, and we're going to use the manager module from NetConf client. It's going to use RPC messages to perform our requested operations. And our requested operations is going to be a get config, and that's going to be done through RPC messages through NetConf, and we're going to get the running configuration of the whole router. All right, so next I'm going to configure that the context manager using the with keyword. And so what's nice about this is when you use this context, it's going to make a connection. Actually, let me just type it all out and then I'll explain it. So I'm going to do with the manager from NetConf client. We're going to make a connection, and it's going to want some arguments passed to it. And so we're going to say, I'm going to define the host so it knows which host to go to. And that is IOS-XE management.cisco.com. Got to hit a comma to let it know that there's more. It's got to access it via port 10,000, because that's what's available on that router. And then we got to define a login credential, right? So we're going to use developer. And again, this is where I've grabbed this off of the DevNet sandbox right here. This is what I'm using. And then we got to define the password. And you guys can do this yourselves too. There's a super secret password. And typically when you SSH into a device, you'll get the key, that message saying, hey, this, because it doesn't have a certificate that is valid. So we're going to have to say host key _ verify, and we don't want to verify it. And so I'm not going to put a comma there because that is the last part of that statement. And then after, so this is the closing parentheses, right, of this section here. And so at the end of this command, we're going to say as m, just to simplify things, and then colon. And so what we're going to do, what's this going to do is it's going to make a connection using the with manager there. It's going to make a connection over SSH. It's going to, and then we're going to configure it to do a get config RPC message to obtain the running configuration. And once it's done with that, it's actually going to close the connection. So there is other ways to do this, except when you make the connection, you'd have to create a statement that closes that connection. And so this just makes it easier, where it creates the connection, and when it's done, as you can see when we type out this command, it'll close out the connection. So it's going to make a connection as M, and what do I want it to do? Well, I want it to get the config, the running config, but I need to place it in something. So I'm going to create this variable netconf reply. And this is where we make this connection. So as M, and there's M, this is our operation here, our RPC operation, get config. Oh, I typed that wrong. Get underscore config. And then in this bracket, in parentheses here, I want to say the source is going to be our running config. And so source is running in quotes there. So that is our connection. We're defining this context, a manager context. These are the parameters that we're going to pass to it in order to make that SSH connection. And I want to do it as just M. I mean, I could make that any letter, but I'm just to simplify things as manager. But I'm going to use RPC. It's going to make an SSH connection with this M under this context using these parameters. And once it logs in, I want it to send an RPC message of get config. And what I'm getting is the running configuration. Once it does that, it places the running configuration in netconf reply. And then it's going to close that connection. So I want to see what that looks like. So I guess what we could do is run a print statement of netconf reply. I think we have .xml. And so I will save that, and let's see if this actually runs correctly. So what I want to do now is run this command, and we should be able to see the output. So let's see. I have my demo.py there. Oh, let's see if this works. I will clear that, all that output. There you go. Looks pretty, doesn't it? That is essentially everything. This is the running config, right? So here's the RPC message. It made the connection successfully because I ran the script. It's using the libraries that I created here or added to the script. It's in XML. Here's the RPC reply from that iOS-XE device. And then we have these different namespaces. It's using netconf, and it is pretty hard to read. So typically this is what the output looks like. You could prettify that. And what we'll do is we'll try to prettify that actually. So I do have a command that will make it look nicer, but this is the full running config of that device. All right, so why don't we create some space here? If you want to make it a little bit more readable, there is Minidom can make it more readable. We can create a print statement. I should go here to my file. So what I want to do instead of this, right, because I just wanted to verify that it worked. So instead of printing the actual output, I will call XML DOM Minidom to parse that RPC reply, which is the running config encoded in XML. We're going to parse the actual data, which is contained in netconf underscore reply. And then we're going to add top pretty XML. What I know about this is it will make it readable. So I'll save that file, come back to my command line, and rerun this again. And hopefully we'll have the indentations. You could see, oh, I messed something up. Has no attribute. Top pretty XML. So I believe though I need to make this in the actual folder that it needs to be in. So let me rerun that or save it. So this is what happens when you try to do this live and you haven't really practiced it that much. Let me go into my environment. I moved the file there. So Python 3. Let's see if it runs. I was pretty sure that would work. So I need to look into why that is, because what I was expecting it to see was that it would open it up to where you take that output and it's barely readable. And what I wanted to do is actually make the indentations so that way you could see it in a much more prettier format. And I think, actually, I know what I did wrong. I have a spelling incorrection, or correct. I need to correct it. So you can see here, there's no attribute this. I'm not saying top pretty XML. It's supposed to say too pretty XML because we want to make it pretty, prettify it. Okay. So let's save that, clear this. Now it should work, hopefully. There you go. All right. So it looks drastically different now. It's a lot more lines of code. But instead of just a big blob of XML, now we've got data, and you can see like what's underneath that data. Usernames. So here's the usernames. There's only one, which is, or there's this one, root and developer, and that's the one that we were using to log in. There's also one that's just called Cisco. Here's the host name. So that's pretty good, right? So now it looks easier to read, and we can see which data we want to get out of this. And I don't know if I can find it fast enough. I see the NETCONF, IETF. What I want is interfaces. So this is the namespace that I want to go into. And all I did was hit Command F to do a find for interfaces because I already know what I'm trying to look for. And I want to use Python to list out every single interface. And we could list out, I don't know, its IP address, or we could list out its description. We could list out whether it's enabled, and this is a Boolean, so it's either true or false. That's what I want to get into. So what the script has done is, also, so far all we have is the whole running config in this, I guess, variable here, netconf reply, and then we parsed it, made it pretty. What's really cool that I've learned through the lab and using netconf is you can create a filter just to filter out what you need. So, and it's a lot more efficient this way, so you don't have to dump the whole running config into here and then try to find it within that output, right? So what we're going to do here at the top is create an actual filter, and I'm going to name it not netconf underscore interface filter equals, and then we got 3 quotes here. It's more like a comment, and this is how I learned it through the lab. But you want to give it a start of the filter so it knows that this is the beginning. And then we want that output that I saw there, interface. So this is the end, because you can tell that's the end element of XML. And I do have a video about that. So what we want is this namespace. All right, so I'm going to copy this into the filter. So I'm going to filter out on this namespace. Let me try to move some of these windows so I can see. I'm creating a filter. This is the namespace I want to filter on. And what do I want to get out of that namespace? Well, we want to look at the interfaces, so we can just grab the interface. That's the start tag element, and we do need to add the end. And that's all we want, and then we got to end the interfaces element tag and then end the filter. And what you do with this filter is then you go down here to the manager context, and in this RPC operation, we're getting the running config, but then we say on this line, we want to add a filter and say within that running config, just give me what I have defined in this. Let me go down to the next line so it's more readable. Give me the output of this filter and use this filter to get that information. All right, so now if we take a look at, I'll save this, go back to my command line, and I'll close this search. So this is our output, right? We got more than an interface. We also had routing and sub interfaces. I think I grabbed the right one, but let's see if it works. And we saw usernames. All right, so I'll clear that out, rerun the script. Hopefully we will just see the interfaces if I did this right. All right, so there's the output. And see how it's much shorter? So now the RPC reply is giving us, here's an RPC reply. It's giving us data, and it's just showing us the interfaces namespace there. And now you can see just the interfaces, and it's encoded in XML. All right, so it's not very useful at this very moment, but I can see that we are working it out through the script. And so now what we want to do is parse the returned XML output and put it in a format that we could manipulate with Python. And so this is where that library xmltodictionary comes in handy, because we can manipulate it that way. And so I'm going to try to move some of these windows that you cannot see. And then what we want to do is take this this output here, right? This is where it's contained right now. And all we did was prettify it. So I'm going to comment that out because we no longer need that. That was just used to verify that it worked. So I'm going to call this netconf underscore data. And now what I'm going to do is call xmltodictionary, and we'll use parse, and we'll say we want to parse netconf reply, because that's where the XML output is. So we're going to pass that into this command, this argument here. And then now we can actually see what that looks like. So I'll print it out. Should look the same. Save that. I'll clear my command line and rerun the script. It's going to make that connection back to, get reply, XML dictionary. So we read these outputs, parser true. A bytes-like object is required, not get reply. So this is what I end up going through in trying to analyze some of my, this is how I learn how Python works, because sometimes you just do it incorrectly. And you have to look at that message. So I'm going to look at that message and see what we're doing wrong. Oh, I think, so if we get the netconf data, did I type that in wrong? Netconf, xmltodictionary, netconf data. I wanted to pass that into there. And it's saying on line 26, here's line 26, in module, in parse, true. A bytes-like object is required, not get reply. Not sure what that means. This is where I would actually Google stuff, but I do have a secret that I'm going to go through. Let me see. I'm just trying to analyze my file here. Oh, you know why? Jeez. It's just always spelling errors with me, or typos. It's not the lack of spaces or the indents. It's because it doesn't know what this file is. It's not XML, the dictionary, doesn't know what this is, because it's not a XML file. Save that. I'll go back here. hopefully this, there you go. All right. So what's different about this? If we look at the output, it's not prettified in any way. It's harder to read. And let me know in the chats if you know what I'm talking about. You can see now the RPC reply is actually inside of an ordered dictionary. And this is a Python ordered dictionary. And with it, now we can make some queries here and pull things out, because you could go into the RPC reply and then go into, see these interfaces here? These interfaces are contained within this data in the list. So what I've learned to do is use the type statement. So if we actually comment that out and start doing print and then use the type, what is it called? A type like module or library. We could do netconf data, and it'll tell us what netconf data actually is. Oh, it's gonna make that query out to the router again, but it's okay. Hopefully no one's using it. So you can see now it is an ordered dictionary within Python, whereas before, now if I comment this out, and now I'm just kind of going off and trying to figure things out. If we do it again, actually, I'll just use the same one that I had here. Uncomment that. Instead of netconf data, let's see what netconf reply is. Let's see if it says anything there. See, it knows that it is a get reply, or a part of the netconf client operations. It is RPC message, so that's pretty cool. So now that we know that this netconf data, we've parsed out the XML file and placed it in there. If we go back up, you'll notice that it's an ordered dictionary. And so this is where I am still not as familiar in understanding how a lot of this works, but if it's an ordered dictionary, we should be able to call certain things, right? So there's all this, for now, it just starts it off as an RPC reply, and then within that RPC reply in the ordered dictionary is a nested ordered dictionary, another one. And so within this ordered dictionary, the data we want is actually here. So this is like a list in the ordered dictionary. We want everything in this data field, the ordered dictionary that's inside of data, and because that contains all our interfaces. And so to do that, and this is where I give a lot of credit to programmers, because it's tough trying to figure out how to do all of this, right? So knowing that we're parsing out the XML reply and converting it to a Python ordered dictionary, you could actually start having it return very specific things. So if we look at RPC reply, that's right here. This ordered dictionary, the first entry there is RPC reply. And then I will query something within that, that it has in its ordered dictionary, and I'm just going to call the data. And I actually forget the name of what this is called, but I'm basically taking just that data out, right? So you can see here, this is the beginning of that file, RPC reply. It's got an ordered dictionary. You've got these different details, namespaces with the message ID. All of that is not really useful to us until we get to here. This is what we want, because you see there's a comma there, so it's another entry. And so we'll save that. Go back to here, and we should see a difference now. Take a sip of coffee. And you know what? It didn't show because I forgot to uncomment this print statement, because I just want to show you the difference of what it's actually doing when we change these statements. So it looks the same, right? But now we've gotten rid of we went like one layer in, because now we're not in RPC. It's not the entries of RPC reply. It's now just giving you the ordered dictionary of the interfaces, the data, the ordered dictionary of the data. This is what's contained in data, which is an ordered dictionary of interfaces. And so this is what's really useful for us, because we want to then grab the interfaces and get things like the name of that interface, right? Here's the name. So you can see that interface has an ordered dictionary of each interface with the name, description, the type, and then it'll go through the interfaces. And it's hard to read it in this way, so I'm not going to even attempt that. So now we have just the ordered dictionary of interfaces. So what we really want to do now is just pull out the interfaces and create a list of those interfaces. And so we're going to call out to the root interfaces that I have here that's showing at the top. And then the item. So in this ordered dictionary, this is the root interfaces and the item is interface. And there should be another one in there. So what I want to do is clear out my scroll back and then do a Command F to find interface just to show you. So interfaces and then interface, which then has an item called name. So if we do name, so now you can actually see each one of these interfaces. So here's the name for Gigabit Ethernet 1, the name for Gigabit Ethernet 2, and so on. All right. So that's great. So what we want to do then, I'll go back to my script, comment that out. And what we want to get is, so we'll create a variable called interfaces, which we'll place the list in. And then we want to do NETCONF data, because this is an ordered dictionary. And from that dictionary, we just want the root interfaces. And from that root, get the item interface. And what we'll do is print that out. So print interfaces. Let's see. So I'll go back to my command line. Hopefully this works again. All right, so now we just have the interfaces. And as you can see, it doesn't show us the root interfaces in the output as we saw before. It just gave us the list here, or the ordered dictionary. But what I do want to show you is what is this? Is this still an ordered dictionary? So let's do print, and I'll put type in front of this. We'll see what kind of data is that. Go back to my command line. And actually, we're not going to print out the output. Line 32, because I'm missing the closing parentheses. And it's a class list. And so this is something I was trying to research earlier, because we've taken the data from NETCONF data, and what we're doing is creating interfaces, and whatever we grab out of that ordered dictionary from the root instances here, or interfaces, I don't know what I'm saying, interfaces, and we're getting each item of interface, right? And then we're passing that into interfaces. And so now it grabs, this is the data. And I think it's because in the ordered dictionary, when we grab interfaces, it's a list. So you can see this is the start of the ordered dictionary, but then we got this square bracket, and I believe that's because that's the start of a list. And so when we pass that into interfaces, the output or the parsing, it is actually a list type. That's the best way I could explain it. If someone has a better way to explain that to me, please do. But now we've got the list of interfaces. That is ultimately what we really need, but it's in a list format that's unreadable. It's hard to figure out what do we do with this, right? How do you make it useful? All right, so now to make it useful, I'll go back to my script. We are now going to use a for loop over the list of interfaces to print out the data that we want. So remember that I should have not cleared the output because I want to show you how we're going to do that with a for loop. So all I did was enable the print statement of interfaces. I don't want to see the type. I want to see the actual output of this that we're calling out. So again, we're going to create a for loop, and we are going to query just the interface name, right? So what we want is the name, and we can do if it's enabled or not, right? Enabled. Here's enabled. So we want name, give us the output of what it is, and tell me whether or not it's enabled, true or false. So then we go back to our script. We create a for loop. So let me hide this so you can see the full output. So I'm going to say for interface that's in interfaces, we are going to print, and so it's going to iterate over the interfaces contained in here, and I'm calling it interface. And we're going to use a format string. So I'm just going to say, all right, interface, and then we have curly brackets, and say, so we would say interface, and then that would be like gigabit Ethernet 1, enabled status is, and then we want to query what that status is. So this is a format string. So now I need to define what these are, right? So if we go back here, we are going to, for interface in interfaces, so interface, and within that ordered dictionary, so I go back here, so ordered dictionary, I'm going to call out name in that list. So name, I have a comma because I'm going to go down a line, and within that ordered dictionary, this ordered dictionary we called name. Now I want to call out enabled. All right, so we type enabled in there. This closes out. I'm missing you see this bracket here or parentheses? That is for that one. I'm actually missing one right after format. Yeah, we're totally messing this up. All right, so now it's this parentheses is closing out format there. We need another one for here. There you go. You can see that. I'm using Atom, by the way, on Mac. So you can see that this closing parentheses is associated with this open one. And so let's go back to this format string. I'm going to print interface and then give me the name of that interface from interfaces, right? Because we are querying interface. And give me the enabled status, which is, and we're calling the second one, which is its enabled status. All right, so it's going to print that out. It's going to loop through the interfaces. So I will comment out line 31 because we don't need to see the full output. And I really had to go through this a few times, and I still do, because in understanding how this actually works, especially these two parts. Line 26, where you parse out the reply into an XML, into a dictionary, XML into a dictionary, and you call out an entry in that dictionary. Then I pass that on to interfaces, in which I'm taking that dictionary and I'm only calling out the interface of interfaces. And because it contains a list of interfaces, I'm going to say for every interface within interfaces, give me the name and the status. And that's how I put it into a for loop. So we'll save this file. Remember, this was the output that we initially received. But now we rerun the script and we should be able to just see like four lines containing this sentence. So Python 3 demo.py, come on, run successfully. There it is. All right, what do you guys think? So we've actually queried this router here out in the internet that Cisco has provided us. I've queried it using Python, NETCONF, got the running configuration, put that into this Python script using these libraries, created a filter just to filter on interface, made a connection, parsed the XML output, put that into a dictionary, a Python dictionary that we could manipulate the data by grabbing then a list of each interface, and then using a for loop to show us that interface gigabit Ethernet 1 enabled status is true. And so you can make this more efficient, but you can play around with this and say interface and then the name, and you can even go back and change it and say description is. And so if we go change this enabled, we don't want enabled, maybe we want description. You want to have a list of the description. And you could create a script that would use RPC messages to modify that configuration and change the description of each interface. And so what I've done here now is instead of pulling the status, I'm actually just going to pull the description of each interface. So let's see if that works. I messed it up. Description and NetMiko. Wait a minute. What happened here? Oh, something didn't work. But it did give me a description of these interfaces here. And then line 36, it said there is a key error description. Interesting. But that's how I was able to use the NetConf lab from DevNet in order to learn Python. I've learned a couple of things like the libraries that we could use to parse out XML and manipulate that data by converting it to a dictionary that Python could use, and then using for loops to iterate through that list that was given to us through interfaces to create that. Oh, one interface doesn't have a description is what Francois is saying. And you're probably right, because that's why I have that error message. Key error description. But we can pull out other data like, I don't know, what should we try? One more thing. Or maybe not. It's already over an hour. But that's pretty much what I had going through a lab through DevNet. What did you guys think? Was that useful for you? Did you learn anything? I'm still learning something as I go through DevNet, using this time to learn Python and how you can construct a script. I've learned about filters with NetConf, so now I could query my 9800 wireless controller, for example, and try to pull out whatever capabilities it has, and then make my own monitoring system, my own dashboards for lab purposes. But I was able to learn more how the for loop works, how loops work, how you can iterate through a list, how to parse out XML and put it into a format that Python could use, and that would be a dictionary. And that actually acts more like JSON, I guess, because you just have a key and a value that you would extract from there. And then I learned how to use the manager module of NetConf client to make connections where it opens the connection and it runs something for you using an RPC message, put that into a variable, and then close that connection. So there you have it. That's what I wanted to go through today. actually learned a few things. We had a few errors along the way, and we were able to get through it. But in the end, we could see everything, and Jussi wants to see the configuration. I can put it in the description of the YouTube video later on, but that way you could try it out for yourself. Just remember that when you're to use a virtual environment. So I'll go back to the virtual environment, right? And this is so you don't mess up your Python environment on your Mac. It's just better to do it on here. And what you could do is all those modules and libraries are installed in this virtual environment in the folder that I had listed out before. And then all you have to do when you're done is just hit deactivate. And so you can see here, I'm in the demo folder that I created, but essentially I could just delete this folder and then that's it. Yeah, so Francois says we can get a little bit more advanced and actually just have it check if the description is there, and if it isn't, then you can just kind of skip it so it doesn't error out. So that's the things you learn as you try to actually go through the lab, do it, try to get that output and try to figure things out. And so there's an interface in there that doesn't have a description. So if we went in here, so I'm guessing one of these doesn't, right? Well, either way, I will probably look at it after this this live stream, but I hope you guys found that useful. If you did, hit the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel and then hit the bell so you can get notified for when I go live. But I am going live for the next couple of days again. Tomorrow, I think what I'll look at is the WLAN Pi, because I saw an interesting discussion on Twitter about whether or not the WLAN Pi is just a hobbyist tool or is it a tool you could use for Wi-Fi. So I think I might do that and dive into the WLAN Pi. And then maybe I'll do more DevNet videos if you guys want to see that, more DevNet labs. Either way, thank you guys for joining me here today. It was great. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day, a wonderful Saturday. Other than that, thank you for joining. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Thank you, Eric, for joining. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for being here with me, Juan. Thanks, Francois. Have a great day, guys. Thank you, Lariana. Thank you, Jussi. Thank you, Enders, for joining me all the way from Netherlands, right? Bye, guys.